You wake up in ancient Rome in the middle of winter. The stone floor beneath your feet is freezing. The fire from last night has already gone out. There is no radiator on the wall, no electric heater, no heated blanket, and definitely no thermostat you can turn up. Even Rome, famous for its Mediterranean sunshine, could become cold, wet, and miserable during winter. So how did Romans keep themselves warm? The obvious answer is fire. But simply lighting a fire created problems of its own. And some Romans eventually found a way to make the room itself warm without keeping the fire beside them. For most people, though, surviving winter started much closer to the body. Clothing. And even the emperor himself struggled with the cold. The Roman writer Suetonius tells us that Augustus did not tolerate cold weather very well. So when winter arrived, the most powerful man in the Roman world piled on the layers. Augustus wore 4 tunics, an undershirt, a woolen covering around his chest, wraps around his thighs and shins, and then a heavy toga over everything. 4 tunics under a toga, plus even more wool wrapped around his body. For an emperor, his winter strategy was remarkably simple: put on more clothes. And farther north, Romans needed even more protection. At Vindolanda in northern Britain, one surviving Roman letter records someone being sent socks, sandals, and underwear. Even Roman soldiers needed a winter care package. But warm clothes only protected the body. How did Romans warm the room itself? The simplest solution was a brazier. Imagine a portable metal container filled with burning charcoal. Bring it into the room, sit nearby, and let the heat warm the people around it. Simple, portable, effective. But there was a problem. Now you had a container of burning fuel sitting inside your house. Charcoal produced fumes. Fire produced sparks. And Roman cities already had more than enough experience with buildings catching fire. There was another problem too. A brazier mainly heated the area around it. Sit close and you were comfortable. Move across the room, and winter came back. So Roman architects learned to use another source of heat, one that cost absolutely nothing: the sun. The Roman architect Vitruvius wrote about designing rooms around the seasons. Rooms intended for winter could be positioned to receive more useful afternoon sunlight. Instead of fighting the season, the house itself could help. The low winter sun entered the room, the surfaces inside absorbed some of that warmth, and people could spend more time in those warmer parts of the house. We can even see this in the home of a real wealthy Roman. Pliny the Younger owned a seaside villa at Laurentum, not far from Rome. In a letter, he describes the house room by room. Part of the villa formed a sheltered area that caught the warmth of the sun. Pliny actually describes this part of the house as his winter quarters. Nearby rooms were positioned to follow the sunlight and stay protected from cold winds. So when the seasons changed, Pliny could change which parts of his house he used. Summer? Move toward the cooler rooms. Winter? Follow the sun. It was almost like migrating inside your own house. But sunlight has one obvious weakness: night. Once the sun disappeared, the walls and floors began cooling again. A brazier could help. More clothes could help. But wealthy Romans had something far more impressive. And if you enjoy seeing how Romans solved everyday problems without modern technology, subscribe, because that is exactly what we uncover here. Instead of trying to build a bigger fire beside them, they heated the floor underneath them. Roman builders raised the floor above the ground on rows of small brick pillars. That created an empty space underneath the room. Nearby, a furnace burned fuel. The hot gases from that furnace traveled through the space beneath the raised floor. The floor above absorbed the heat. And in more sophisticated systems, warmth could also travel upward through spaces built into the walls. This was the Roman Hypocaust. So imagine walking inside on a freezing winter day. There is no radiator. There is no fireplace blazing beside you. But the stone beneath your feet is warm. Nearly 2,000 years before underfloor heating became a modern luxury, Romans were already heating buildings from below. Of course, there was a catch. A hypocaust needed fuel. Someone had to keep the furnace burning. Someone had to maintain the system. And the building itself had to be constructed specifically for it. So most Roman families were not walking around on heated floors. But there was one place where far more Romans could experience this technology: the baths. Roman bathhouses used furnaces and raised floors to create heated rooms. You could walk in from a cold street and enter a building with warm floors, hot rooms, steam, and hot water. The hottest room, the caldarium, could feel like another world compared with winter outside. For someone whose home relied mostly on layers and a brazier, the difference must have been enormous. And that shows how different a Roman winter could be depending on who you were. Augustus could pile on 4 tunics. A soldier in northern Britain could receive socks from home. An ordinary family might gather around a brazier. Pliny could retreat into rooms warmed by the winter sun. And the wealthy could literally warm the stone beneath their feet. So if you had to survive one Roman winter, which would you choose? Augustus's layers, a charcoal brazier, unlimited access to the hot baths, or Pliny's heated floors? Tell me in the comments. Because Romans did not defeat winter with one magical invention. They adapted one layer at a time, until eventually, they figured out how to put the heat beneath the entire room.